Hello, everyone. It's your man Priest coming at you with how to be free from addictions. That would be behavioral and chemical substance abuse and/or addictions. The title of this is Addiction to Subtraction. Because we all have uncontrollable desires, this teaching will help everyone who has done something as a recreation and has now become something we do habitually or ritualistically. That may consume a lot of our time that we cannot get back. This is called behavioral addiction or non-chemical addiction. I will mainly be discussing chemical substance abuse and drug addictions. This information will help you be free from all addictions. The best thing you will ever do is change your life around and to be free from addiction. This will help you get free from the bondage of addiction. Can you think greater than you feel? I will help you think greater, do greater things, and to be a greater person. I am qualified to speak on this subject of addiction because I have been free from addiction for 25 years. I used and abused many drugs before my deliverance. So now I have a compassion to see people free from any and all addictions. This is my deep passion for you. I have been called by God to help you with these things and that we are bound to that consumes us and our time. They become a distraction in our lives. These things will hinder us from the things that will add value to our lives. Most of these teachings here will be biblical principles and practices to be free from any harmful things that we do to ourselves and others. I have been walking in victory because of these principles and for some time now. These schemes and devices are targeting us to be distracted away from our purposes. Addiction is characterized and defined in some instances as such. Addiction is a compulsive use of a substance that harms a person's health, relationships, school, and/or work performance. It harms any productive work in your life. On the other hand, drug addiction is a chronic disease characterized by a compulsive, uncontrollable drug seeking and use of drugs despite the harmful consequences and changes in the brain, which can be long or lasting changes and drug addiction. A substance has hijacked the brain. Some people have a genetic predisposition to addiction or tendency to suffer from a particular condition with a tendency to do something. Because it includes basic brain functions, everyone will become an addicted person if sufficiently exposed to drugs and alcohol. And anyone can be addicted to behavioral addictions. Behavioral or non-chemical addictions include online gamers, gambling, pornography, shopaholics, workaholics, sexual addiction, binge watching TV, etc. Yeah, we can be addicted to sex or anything that we do habitually or ritualistically. When it goes from habitual or ritual to compulsive, there may be an addiction. These things will subtract our time and money and eventually consume us and everything we do. Addictions will subtract things we need to do or things we should be doing. Now, about habits. It takes 21 to 60 days to develop a habit. Some habits are addictions. A person may have a problem whenever he acknowledges a problem exists and is distressed by it, or when his or her life is negatively impacted in noticeable ways. Drug addiction and abuse are when we are using a chemical substance, and drug abuse can escalate to physical dependency. This is a severe form of abuse and addiction that is a psychological and physical dependence to drugs. I know what this is like personally because I was physically addicted to a drug myself. You can actually make these drugs gods in your life. I've seen what drugs can do, from overdosing to imprisonments to medical conditions from these drug addictions. This has a high fatality rate. From abuse and addiction to drugs, from searching to obtain drugs, to crime and overdosing using drugs, it can have consequences like these to drug users. Also, there are so many takeaways from just one addiction. So many subtractions. When do we have a problem? Knowing when we have a problem is the biggest problem. We are in denial and won't accept the fact that there is a problem. This is the biggest problem. Whether or not we are willing to acknowledge the root causes of the problem, it's there. So let's rehearse who and what we want to be and think greater than we feel. If you can't think greater than you feel, then your life will be the same. Our thoughts make up the ingredients of our emotions, which causes us to do things that consume our time. Our mental and emotional factors govern a situation or activity and how we think. Addiction is a harmful behavior of mental and emotional factors that govern the situation or activity. We go from liking something to being addicted to it. Let's get free from negative thinking and negative behavior by renewing our mind and thought process. Let's also stay free from old behaviors. He who the Son sets free is free indeed. Let's think about and do things that are positive, that will create value in our lives by the things we should be doing. Sometimes we learn from the lost battles with the hangover or the number on the scale or the heartbeat of a spouse to set us straight. Other times, there's no lesson learned. Instead, we're just powerless not to repeat or continue the same behavior when we intend to do the right thing. We promised ourselves and we promised the people around us and our loved ones that we will change and we will do better. We said it again and again to them and to ourselves that we will change and do better, but we continue to fail. The behavior we hate becomes a habit. Behavioral addictions are behavioral. No one shoots up video games or smokes pornography or drinks shopping sprees, but the cravings are still the same as drug addictions. So the compulsion still exists, and so does the need for more and more in pursuit of that excitement or pleasure. Going from liking something to being addicted to it is our biggest problem. Drug and alcohol addictions require a chemical internal agent that enters the body and messes with the working of the brain. In some cases, the chemical substance is so powerful that addiction seems instantaneous, as with heroin or crystal meth. In most cases, it's a little more subtle. It takes some time for the abuse and addiction to happen, especially when it concerns a gateway drug. Gateway drugs are like a path or a gate for a bigger, better, and stronger drug to be used or abused. These gateway drugs will have you crave stronger and more potent drugs. These gateway drugs can be something used recreationally that loses its potency to where you're craving a new drug to replace the old drug. The science of addiction is a powerful concept. This is your brain on drugs. The neurotransmitter and receptors in your brain can make us do something habitually to crave something to where we get hooked and addicted. What the brain is capable of doing and how it works in conjunction with addictions is amazing. And not just in conjunction with addictions, it's just amazing. The mind is definitely a terrible thing to waste. Neurotransmitters. We're talking about the science of addiction. Neurotransmitters are chemical transmitters that our body cannot function without. Their job is to carry out the signals and messages in our brain. These are the messages from one neuron or nerve cell to the next targeted cell. This is the transmitter's job. The receptor receives the messages, in which the receptor receives these signals in many forms. The receptor receives the messages, in which the receptor receives these signals in many forms. The receptor plays an important role in our moods, our learning, and our social bonds concerning the feelings, moods of joy, excitement, happiness, and the brain's pleasure and reward system that is powered by the neurotransmitter dopamine. Yes, it does have the word dope in it. Maybe that's where we get the word dope from. Dopamine is where it all goes down in accordance with addiction. This is the neurotransmitter called the pleasure center. This is where it happens in regards to cravings, compulsions, and addictions. Addiction has been labeled as a medical condition, so we should know the science behind addictions. Dopamine is the brain signal that carries pleasurable rewards and pleasurable signals, and can increase the desire for drugs. Dopamine not only contributes to the experience of pleasure, but it also plays a role in learning and memory. I'm giving you this knowledge to help you get free from all addictions. Because for lack of knowledge, people will perish. I have been delivered and set free from drugs and addiction for 25 years. And I was a professional, experienced drug user and drug abuser. For those years of my life, I was good at using drugs. I was a dope fiend. The power of the mind controls us. Addictive chemical substances and behavioral addictions stimulate the same circuit in the brain, then overload it. Anything that has a potential to activate the dopamine system has what is called an addictive dimension. This is why we are programmable and why we are subconsciously attached to emotional states of pleasure. This is the function of the reward center of the brain that produces dopamine. We look for things to make negative emotions go away or to make bad things go away. This can result in chemical substance use, abuse, and behavioral addictions. Anything that we do to try to make these emotions go away is called the disease of pleasure. As long as people have had ways to feel good, to make bad things go away, we have struggled to know when it is time to stop. The brain is a complex organ regulating breathing, managing memory, and intercepting touch and sound and taste. It is the brain that puts us to sleep and creates dreams. The brain processes pleasure, the satisfaction of eating, the thrill of sex, the excitement of winning, and the feeling of being buzzed or high because of the chemistry of this or that neurotransmitter engaging this or that receptor and sending a bit of happiness along the way. Neural circuits have never had such a joy before you downed a glass of beer or won at gambling or took a drug to get high. Now your brain chases that feeling over and over again. The things we think about have a way of determining our emotion. The reality doesn't change, but our thoughts and perceptions do. When our thoughts change, that changes how we feel, good or bad thoughts. Changing our lives involves changing our actions. Changing our lives happens when we first think differently, which affects emotions, which would then determine our actions. Do not conform to the past ways or even the past way of thinking, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We need to take control of our thoughts and not letting our thoughts take control of us by observing and challenging them. We need to notice our negative thoughts and talk back to them, evaluate them to see if they are realistic. We can be the air traffic controller of our mental airport inside of our brain. You occupy the tower. You direct the mental traffic of your world of thoughts. Thoughts circle above, coming and going. If one of them lands, it's because you gave it permission. If it leaves, it's because you directed it to do so. You can select your thought patterns. If you can direct which ones land, which ones leave, and at the proper time. Our problem is not the only problem. It's the way we think about our problem. Let's not subtract important things that we need to add to our lives. Let's get free. Let's be free. Let's stay free from any and all addictions. And I hope this information was helpful in any way. Tune into the next episode, which is going to be titled Smoking That Indo, Sip It on Gin and Juice. And I will have many, many more episodes that will individually break down each drug and or behavioral addiction, whether it be gambling, pornography, heroin, crystal meth, cigarettes, alcohol. The list goes on and on. Actually, the next one is the title is kind of a clue on which drugs I'm going to be speaking on. And I hope you tune in. Peace be with you. Much love to you. And may God do exceedingly abundantly above all that you can think or ask. Peace out. God bless you all. That's all I got for you right now. That's it. Done deal. It's over.